Our second scripture lesson for today comes from the book of Luke, chapter 21, verses 25 through 36. It goes like this. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. He told them this parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and the anxieties of life. And that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. For it will come on all those who live on the face of the whole earth. Be always on the watch, and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. Please pray with me. Dear God, we know you are coming. Our hope is in you. Let these words give us all hope every day, now and into the future. Amen. Well, today the calendar has been, yesterday the calendar has been flipped to December. And it's that time of year when we start counting down the days until we celebrate the coming of Christ to the world on Christmas morning. It's a day of hope for better days in the future than what we are experiencing right now. Traditionally, the first week of Advent not only looks forward to just the 4 weeks until Christmas, but it always also looks forward to that wonderful point in time when Jesus will come back for a second time, when Jesus will redeem the whole world in justice and in peace. Now that will be a day that will be a much bigger celebration than a Christmas day. In fact, the second coming is so big and important, it makes the joy of Christmas look as brief and as common as an elementary school 30-minute recess. So if this awesome hope for our future is going to be such a wonderful and glorious and a big deal for the church and the world, why do we so seldom talk about it? Why are we silent about the second coming of Christ? Now, talking about the coming of Jesus has kind of fallen out of practice in mainline Protestant churches over the last 50 years or so. The latest survey I could find on about the second coming of Jesus was done by Pew Research Center in 2010. And according to that survey, 58% of white evangelical Christians thought that Jesus Christ would return to the earth by the year 2050. 32% of Catholics and 27% of white mainline Protestants agreed with these white evangelicals that the world as we know it will end in the next 30-ish years. Now, it used to be much more common for some Christians, when making plans for a later date, to use the phrase, "if the Lord tarries," to describe the imminent coming of Christ, to remind each other that it could come at any time and break into our everyday lives. But you don't hear that phrase used so much anymore. Today, those who primarily think and talk about the second coming are those who tend to take the Bible very literally, who try to pull clues from the Bible, try to directly apply those clues to whatever is in the newspaper today. Often they try to identify who is the Antichrist, the evil character from the book of Revelation. And they'll put together a long proof text, or they'll do symbolic numerology arguments to prove their theories that Barack Obama or Donald Trump or the Pope or someone is actually secretly the Antichrist as was foretold, and that the end of the world as we know it is nigh. But what these 21st writers typically don't take into consideration is that there is a massive difference between the worldview of people at the end of the first century and the worldview of us today, living in the 21st century. Today, we do not live in a world that even has a genre of apocalyptic literature, that genre of writing that was so much known and loved in the first century. We don't today operate in a world of symbols and signs. We don't think about things happening in the spiritual realm, a dimension that in the first century people believed was operating just out of sight behind the physical world. Instead, we live in a world of facts, of scientific experiments, scientific method. We live in a world where camera feeds of reporters from around the world have live missile strikes crashing in the background. We live in a world of instant communication, technology so advanced that our medicine and our machines do things that would have been considered absolutely magical by our ancestors. Instead of believing in science and technology, the first century authors believed in gods and spirits. The world that they inhabited, gods were frequently spoken of through this genre of apocalypse, which is the genre of this future-focused statement in our sermon scripture today. Now, what is an apocalypse? It was a genre best loved by people who were under oppression. In an apocalypse, the story always follows the same format. A superhero sweeps into the spiritual picture, clobbers all the bad guys, and creates a world where justice is finally given to those people who are suffering under oppression, who cannot liberate themselves. You can think of it kind of like the Marvel superheroes battling, conquering the evil Thanos once and for all, restoring all things to good in the universe. This apocalypse genre was a vehicle of hope for people who are often ready to give up all hope. It is absolutely in the spirit of, someday you're going to be sorry for what you did to me, and I got a bigger God than you, and one day my God is going to get you for doing that to me. So when Jesus is speaking to the disciples in this genre of apocalypse, you can imagine that what those disciples are really eager to know was when this powerful and punishing Roman Empire was going to finally get what was coming to them. They wanted to see the Roman emperor, a self-proclaimed deity, all resplendent in his royal purple robes, pulled off of his white horse and dragged around in the dirt. They wanted to really be around to see that. And so any tiny hint that this could happen in their lifetime at any moment, at any time, when they least expected it, was a statement that they latched onto. Something they repeated and definitely remembered and recorded when they wrote down their memories of what Jesus had said to them. Whether they had listened carefully and understood what Jesus said properly or not, the deepest longing of what they really wanted Jesus to come and do, which was to overthrow those blasted Romans, colored how they remembered what Jesus said and what they wrote down that has come to us as the Gospels. But the big point of Jesus using the apocalypse genre when talking to his disciples was not to give them secret special information about what clues we need to look for 2,000 plus years after Jesus died and was resurrected. The point was that the disciples needed to have hope and not despair about the future. God's kingdom had come already, but it was not yet finished. It wasn't completely fulfilled. Jesus lived his life as one who participated in that making of God's kingdom. God's work was breaking in on evil already, teaching and healing and building up people in love. Jesus preached that we needed to trust and hope and do the work of God. We need to be reconciled to others through the gospel of Christ and make God's kingdom come about in this world. Now, in our age of technology today, people often get a phone number or an email address wrong, or a text message or an email message will go astray. And sometimes the consequences of that brings a result far beyond our greatest expectations. Here's a story that began in February of 2018 with a teenage girl named Mandy Miller, who was trying on prom dresses. She texted 2 photos of herself in a potential prom dress to her friend. However, that particular phone number no longer belonged to her friend, and the text instead went to a man named Tony Wood. Tony was home that day with 5 of his 6 children, and instead of ignoring the text, he showed the picture to his children, who all agreed that Mandy looked lovely in the prom dress. And so Tony responded to her, telling her that the phone number was wrong, but he also enclosed a photo of all of his 5 children, giving Mandy a thumbs up on a potential dress purchase. Mandy thought it was so cute, she posted the interaction on Twitter. And soon it went viral with 80,000 retweets. A friend told Tony, which led people that his kid's photo had gone viral. So Tony spoke up on that Twitter thread, which led to people following the links back to find out that Tony's 4-year-old son, Keisler, was battling leukemia, and that the Wood family had a GoFundMe page for him. That's when things really started going crazy. Complete strangers started donating to this family who had posted this cute picture of their kids giving a thumbs up. A family who was trying to pay for cancer treatments while also raising 6 children. Their GoFundMe goal initially was a modest $1,000. It was quickly surpassed. Within days, they had exceeded $10,000. The Wood family was in shock. They had been hoping and praying that they were going to be okay financially, that Keislers would get through this, and that it wouldn't ruin them financially or hurt the futures of the rest of their children. Their wildest hopes had come true as they were able to pay for Keisler's chemo treatments. And by the time that the internet frenzy over their story had calmed down, the Wood family had received over $56,000 in donations. Tony Wood wrote an article documenting the whole experience. He ends it with, "I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all the love and support. We are humbled by everyone's response to this situation. It's amazing that something as simple as a little text can turn into a life-changing event. God bless all of you." My friends, that is the kingdom of God coming to fruition here in our day, in our time. This family that had hope that one day everything would be all right saw that hope come true. My friends, in conclusion, it is our job as the people of Christ to live into the hope that the work that we are called to do in the name of Christ is not something that we stop doing just because we're afraid that the world is terrible and ending. We don't live in fear that the end of the world, that is not in a Christian's job description. We are to live in hope for a future, a better future, because we as children of God already know how the story will end. Either Christ will return at a time that